Hey, it's Gothy, and I'm doing a... Oh, that needs to move over a little. Hey, it's Gothy, and I'm doing a book review. And in this case, it's going to be probably a bit more gushing than anything, but I'm going to be reviewing Steelheart by Sanderson. This was the 14th book I read in March, and I really enjoyed this. So this is about, trying to do this spoiler free as much as possible. So this is about some superheroes, but it's not the usual superhero kind of story, which I really liked. Like, I'm very much into comic books and, superheroes. Spider-Man is my homeboy. And yeah, like, I really like superheroes and supervillains, and the fight between good and evil and protecting humanity and that kind of thing. What really appealed to me when I started reading this was the fact that these superheroes didn't give two fucks about humanity unless it served them. And, basically the superheroes are bad guys, and it's humans that are fighting the superheroes. And I loved that twist. I loved that originality in that kind of storyline. And this was so well written. It was, even the parts where there was no action happening were still really fast paced and still really interesting. You really get interested in the characters, and I was sad when I read the last page until I flipped over past the author's note to see that... Wait, where is it? Where is it? I will show you. Yes, there's going to be a second book. This makes me really happy. Even though, and that's like 6 months away, 5 months away, not very long at all. I have to wait that long for the next WoW expansion, so I can wait that for a book. But this was absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to go in a little bit more depth with the storyline. So if you haven't read this, it's not necessarily going to be spoilers if I can help it, but I am going to go in a bit more depth. So if you haven't read it, I would recommend not watching the rest. And you should just go to a bookshop or a library and get this book and read it now. And then you can come back and watch, because you need to read this. Not even kidding, you need to. So it starts, the story starts off with a little boy called David and his father, and they're at the bank, and his father is trying to save their home. The money's not great, and as they're in, when they're in their little meeting room with their little banker, and a superhero comes in, and they call them epics in this. They're not superheroes, they're epics. And I really like that, because a superhero implies that they protect humanity and they save people, but epics just kind of comes across as being, well, they have these powers, but they're self-serving assholes. So I like that. But an epic comes in, and David recognizes him as an epic straight away. And this particular epic is called Death Point. And one little thing I don't like is the lack of originality when it comes to names. Like, Death Point. He points at people and they die. They turn to ash and bone. So, not a whole lot of originality there, but still really entertaining. Still really enjoyed it. But so Death Point's in here, and he's going through and he's pointing at people and bang, you're dead, bang, you're dead. This is my town now, I'm taking over, screw you all, you're all beneath me, you're all mine now. So then Steelheart comes in. Steelheart is invulnerable. No one can kill him, you can't shoot him, you can't injure him. He can also turn things into steel. So he comes in, he's like, no, you can't do that because this is my town. These people belong to me, this town belongs to me. Mine, 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 mine. And then Death Point, they kind of talk, and Death Point agrees to kind of, work with him, and then stands behind him and goes to kill him. So David's father gets a gun off one of the guards and shoots at Death Point. Because, even though Steelheart is just as much of a bastard as Death Point, David's father still believes that there are good superheroes, that there are good epics, people who have abilities who want to protect humanity. And he believes with, his whole being that they'll come soon. So he protects Steelheart, even though Steelheart's just come in and be like, nope, mine, mine, mine. And then, the bullet, he fires a few shots, and one of the bullets grazes Steelheart's cheek. Now, everyone knows Steelheart is invulnerable, you can't shoot him, you can't stab him, you can't do anything to him, you cannot hurt him. But this bullet grazes his cheek, and he bleeds. So then Steelheart goes on this rampage, kills everyone in the bank, destroys the bank, but David survives because he hides, and then he goes and hides in the vault. So then all the rescue staff show up, and all the rescue workers, and they start pulling out the bodies and stuff, and Steelheart's still hanging around to make sure everyone's dead. So when they find David alive, the woman who pulls him out of the rubble says, "Play dead. Don't let him see that you're alive." And he does, but then he ends up getting scared, and he's just like, oh, I don't know what the hell's going on. And he scampers off into an alleyway, which is a good thing, because Steelheart decides that even these rescue workers know too much. So he crushes them too, and kills everyone to do with this particular event, except for David. So then David, he grows up in the factory, which is like an orphanage where they work for accommodation. And then he starts going after the, what are they called? The Reckoners. Now, the Reckoners are basically a rebel group, and they kill epics. So David goes after them and does everything he can to join them. And when he does join them, he ends up getting them to focus on destroying Steelheart and Steelheart's lieutenants, because he spent his entire life since that day in the bank studying epics, finding out what their powers are, finding out what their weaknesses are. And it goes through the entire thing, and there's a few twists in that as well with some of the other characters, including some of the Reckoners. And at the end, it's not one of those cliffhanger endings. Everything kind of wraps up. There are still some questions that are left unanswered, who is that character, what happened to them, but it's not like an abrupt ending. And I really enjoyed that fact, because I hate reading books when you've got to wait for the next one to come out, and you're sitting there waiting for months and months on a cliffhanger. It just pisses me off. It's not the way to do it. So yes, 5 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend people picking this up. I've mostly spoken in depth about the first chapter or two, so there's still plenty of book that I haven't spoken about, because I want to kind of entice people to find out what happens, and just to pick it up and read it, because I know he does a lot of fantasy stuff. I really want to get the Mistborn trilogy and give that a go, but this one, while it's sort of fantasy, it's really good. So pick this up, and I will see you guys next time.